It's day 182 of the self-quarantine today. Here in Los Angeles, the wildfires are still raging on all over Southern California, especially here in Los Angeles. The Bobcat fire is the one that we have to pay attention to because that's the one that has been burning the Angels National Forest since this past Sunday. And since then, it has burned over 26,000 acres of land and further beyond of the forest. And then it's only been 6% contained by the firefighters that have been battling hard for 24/7 without any rest. And they're urging all Angelinos who live near these fires, or even further, that there's going to be a very hard, difficult time in which people shouldn't go outside, shouldn't stay outside for a while because these wildfires are producing this heavy smoke that it makes it very unhealthy quality of air for anyone to breathe for a long period of time, especially for people that have breathing problems or don't even have breathing problems. They can develop those things if they are outside without a mask. And they're urging people to stay at home, close their doors, close their windows. If they have AC, turn it on. If you have any type of AC that has an air purifier, turn them on as well. They want to purify the air that's inside the house. So what's inside the house is cleaner than what is outside. And if none of those apply, then you can just have fans on, and that could be an alternative as well. It's just the quality of the air is just so bad that a lot of people have reported to have a dry cough or just dry throats. And the scenery hasn't changed that much as well. It's been cloudy all day today, and it's not going to change for a while just because of how massive these fires have been and how fast they're spreading all over the national forest and beyond. Now, regarding the coronavirus here in Los Angeles, the number of cases, death, and hospitalizations continue to decrease. So far, that is a good sign. However, there's actually a little bit of bad news because of these wildfires. The testing centers have been closing because they don't want to endanger the workers or the people who want to take the test from experiencing any type of breathing problems. So you just have to go to a website from the LA County just to see what test sites are available and which ones are closed. So if the testing centers are pretty close to the wildfires, you can bet that those are closed. But we're probably going to have a little bit of missing data because of that, and that's just another hiccup that these testing centers are getting at this very moment. First it was the high temperatures, and now it's the wildfires, but we just have to tackle one thing at a time. Lastly, today is a day of remembrance. 19 years ago today was one of the darkest chapters of American history. On September 11, 2001, terrorists hijacked 4 airplanes. 2 of them crashed into the World Trade Center in New York City. One of them crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and the 4th plane crash landed in the outskirts of Pennsylvania. That 4th plane was later investigated, and it was determined that the terrorist target was either going to be the Capitol building or the White House in Washington, D.C. However, the passengers in that plane wanted to fight back and wanted to recontrol the plane because they wanted to stop the terrorists, no matter what the cost, even if it meant losing their lives, in which they did, but they died as heroes. And I remember September 11th very clearly. I was in the 6th grade. I just came back from a summer trip visiting my family in Nicaragua. That was before the airports had all this crazy security. And I remember I was getting ready for school, and when I turned on the TV early in the morning, there was basically this building, and there was smoke coming out. Everybody was confused. They didn't know what was going on. Eyewitness accounts that there was a plane that hit it. It almost sounded like a loud explosion. And there was nothing to make of it. Everybody thought it was just, some accident that happened. But then later that day, a second plane was basically flying from the harbor, and it hit the building, and that's where everything stopped. Immediately, everyone knew that the United States was under attack from an unknown enemy, and that meant that we were going to war. And I remember just looking in the faces of my parents and just in shock of what was going on. And I remember even though I was young, I still knew the significance of what that meant, that war was inevitable. And when I went to school, everybody was quiet. Every single classroom had the TV on with the news showing images of what was going on in New York City. But then later on, after the second plane hit, there was word that the Pentagon was also on fire, and that they said that a plane crashed into the Pentagon. And then later throughout the day, that there was a fourth plane that crashed in basically a field somewhere in Pennsylvania. And I remember everybody was quiet. They didn't know what to do. We all saw people scared. People were afraid. People were even crying just to know that the United States was basically under attack. And we didn't know what to do. We were so unprepared. And I always remember when the towers fell, that was one of the eerie moments where everybody was just silent, glued to the TV. The dust, it almost looked like an atomic bomb that just destroyed all of New York City. And the firefighters that had all the dust in everywhere, and people bloodied, people crying, and we just thought how many people were lost, in not just in the plane crashes, but also when the towers fell. And after school was over, my parents basically picked me up, and it was a very quiet car ride home. But I always remember my dad and my mom told me that don't be afraid. That's what they want you to be. This new enemy the United States has, they want you to be afraid. They want you to be scared, but don't let them have the pleasure. We're strong. We're Americans. We can get through this. When we bend, that's when our strength is shown. These are their words. And they said that, but the United States, one of the most strongest nations in the world, and this thing is not going to break us. And I remember on the car ride home, I noticed everyone was having an American flag on their car, on their house, everywhere. And everybody was chanting USA as strongly as possible. And people being silent, everyone had the black little ribbon to remember all the fallen victims. And then later in that night, I remember that there was like a small vigil all around the United States to honor the people that were lost because of those attacks. And it just reminds me that during a time of crisis, during a very dark chapter, that's when all Americans can come together, no matter what the differences are. And I think this is more important now than ever, especially during a pandemic, that we're living dark times, but that doesn't mean that it should divide us. We should be stronger, and we should work together. That's the way to do it. Be stronger and work together. And hopefully this pandemic can show the best instead of showing the worst. Because right now, the worst is being shown right now, and not enough of the best. But today, we just honor all the people that were lost during that dark, dark chapter of American history. So that is it for today's video. So everyone, stay strong, stay safe.